Hi everyone, this is Holly from Hot Humble Pie. Welcome to my channel if you're new, and a big warm hello to my subscribers. I love you guys so much. Today I am bringing you some trash to treasures and some thrift store makeovers. And as always, I hope you enjoy the show. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I'd love it if you click that button. For this first DIY, I am using a clock that I got. I don't remember how I got it, but I didn't pay for it. It was either a gift or someone gave it to me. I just know that I haven't been able to put it up for a while because it doesn't go with my decor. It's a pretty look if you have that decor. It's just my decor is completely different, and I'd like to use this clock because I have a little area upstairs where I keep needing to glance at something to see what time it is, and there's nothing there but a wall. I'm going to start by taping off the glass and covering up that gold rim around the edge of the glass there. That just to me is a little dated. Again, if you have that look, it's nice, but you have to have that whole look. It can't just be thrown in there with Farmhouse Rustic decor. So we start by painting it black, and I'm going to use the Dollar Tree beads and glue them all the way around the outer edge of the glass like that. And so this is what we have so far. We're just going to finish it up here. And then you're going to see me go through a process here. I left it in. I was thinking about just showing you what I finally did with the clock, but I actually have an idea that some of you may like, so I still wanted to share it with you in case you want to do this version of it. At the end, I chose to switch it up. I basically redid this whole clock. I made it over, and then I ended up changing it. So now I'm taking some white acrylic paint, and I'm going to go ahead and give the beads and the clock one coat. So now I'm taking the Territorial Beige from Apple Barrel Paint, and I decided to put it on, like sponge it on, and then I don't like it. I want it more like a stain, so I take a wet baby wipe and kind of wipe it off so it looks like this. And now I'm doing a technique that's called wet sanding. I'm just kind of wiping it off to make it look like I sanded it. I want to give credit to Liz Fenwick because I had never heard of that before. She mentioned it in one of her videos that I watched last year, and I thought, ooh, that's kind of cool. I have to try that. So that's what it looks like, but it started to dry while I was sanding there, so I ended up having to sand it with sandpaper. Here it is, you guys. To me, it's too orange against the face of the clock, so I try to tone it down with some dry brushing with white paint. I'm picking it up, I'm looking at it, I'm going, I don't like that. I still don't like that. So I'm taking the black paint now, just acrylic paint again, and I'm dry brushing over to try and tone the orange again. And in the end, you guys, I give up. I just decide to repaint it and give it a color that has a yellow base that will match the face of the clock a little bit. I think if this clock had had a white face, it would have looked fantastic, but it was clashing in my opinion. It was just weird looking. So now we've got a little bit more of a blend. I think those two colors complement each other, and I'm really, really happy with how it turned out. I like the way the other clock worked, what I did before. I like that. It's just you need a different color face on the clock. So I wanted to leave it in there, like I said, just in case you guys need extra ideas. Now I'm taking the Dollar Tree nautical rope here. I'm just going to glue it around the beads, and I'm going to glue it around the outer edge as well. Last but not least, I like to take a little flame and just float it over there to get rid of the hairs, and I like that singed look, and this is what we end up with, and I love it. For this DIY, I'm using an olive oil bottle that my sister gave me. I think she got it as a gift from a friend, and she had used it as decor after she used the olive oil for many, many years, and like anything else, she was changing out her decor, and she didn't want to throw it away, so she asked me if I could use it, and I said, oh yes. I had seen something from the Antique Farmhouse on Instagram. I don't know if you guys follow that. It's like a store where you can buy like totally awesome farmhouse stuff. It was a wooden pitcher, and I wanted so badly to recreate that, but I didn't have anything in quite the right shape. So this was really, really close. So I was very excited when she gave it to me. So I decided to use this high-end paint by Behr. It's a latex paint. It's supposed to stick on any surface. It has primer in it. It's an ultra matte dry. I've used it in previous videos, had great luck on glass, and I paint it and leave it overnight to dry because I want it to stick for sure. I don't want any mistakes. You know, I didn't want to rush, because sometimes when you don't let things dry and you try to smear a wax on or a stain, it'll start lifting. So now, you know, I initially painted black to cover all of the designs really well, and I'm going to go ahead and give it now a coat of white primer by Kills, because I need the white base for what I'm going to do. But look what happens, you guys. It starts funking out. I have no idea. This is what, look, you can see it right there. It starts peeling off, and I mean the whole thing is just lifting off. So there was some kind of a chemical reaction from the Kills primer to the Behr paint, and I just give up. I take it downstairs, wash it. It comes totally off, and I spray paint it with the Rust-Oleum primer 2 times coat, and I use my Folk Art wax there. And I'm going to go ahead and use the wax because at this point I'm kind of paranoid. I don't want to use water-based anything because I'm afraid I'm going to start lifting the paint again. I mean, it feels like it's on there, but that freaked me out, to be honest, you guys. I have never seen anything or had anything like that happen, but who knows? You know, all the different brands of paints are made with different chemicals, and they obviously weren't compatible. They didn't like each other. So much for that. Ends up turning up better though, and I wish I had just taken it outside to spray paint anyway. The reason I was doing the brush strokes is because I thought, oh yeah, I'll add the big grooves and it will look more like wood grain when I go to put the wax on, which was a good idea, but it just didn't work out. It comes up beautiful in the end, but it was an interesting DIY for sure. So now I'm just going to go ahead and paint some wood on there, and you'll see me kind of take the brush at some point and spin it a little bit to imitate like a wood knot, you know, K-N-O-T, like a knot in the wood, just to kind of make this look like a wood pitcher. So someone asked me what brush I prefer for doing a faux wood grain. I actually prefer the thicker nylon brushes over a chip brush. The chip brush kind of gives you a real fine look. If you want to get those stark lines in there, it's better to have the thick stick bristles, in my opinion. You get more streaks, and you know, that's what you're going for. So here comes my knot, you guys. I make a knot. It's really awful. I end right here. That's the method. The method to the madness, but I actually end up taking that knot out because I don't like it, but I've got 2 other great ones. There's one right there, and I love the way this came out. This is a thrift store find from the Goodwill that I found last January. It was half off, so I got it for $1.50. And here's our farmer's market calendar, which I'm going to try and use as much as possible. For those of you that have been watching my channel, you know I gave about 17 of those away, and so I do want to use as many pages as I can. So I start off by cutting that rope off. I'm not going to be using that, and I choose this picture here because it's pretty much the only one that fit on this really, really well, so I didn't have a lot of choices. And I'm going to start out by cutting it out. Now I decided to use a method that I had used before in my previous video. I'm using the fire method. There's a bunch of different ways you can do that. You can tear it with your hands, you can wet it and then, with a brush and then tear around the edges. I wanted to burn it because I wanted a little bit of the brown staining left behind, and I thought it looked really good last time I did it, so I just had good luck. Now here I'm using the water-based stain. It's down below. Both stains, the wax and the water-based stain, which is acrylic, washes out of your brush really well, odorless, so if you're sensitive to odors, it's great for that. They're both down below my video in the description box, a link if you're curious which one I'm using and what color. And I'm just going to kind of darken this up. I mixed that stain with a little bit of black paint from Apple Barrel because it's just a little bit too orange for me. It's kind of dated. I don't like that. Well, if it was in fashion, we all like kind of what's trendy, I think, but for me that was just a little too orange. I wanted to darken it up just a little bit. And now of course I'm taking some sandpaper and I'm going to really make those edges nice and rustic and distressed. That's my look right now, so I got to stay with it. I am committed. So here I'm taking the Mod Podge and I'm just going to spread some Mod Podge on with a sponge brush. I like to use sponge brushes because I can throw them away when they get really gooky. I tend to lose focus and forget about the Mod Podge in my brushes, and I have spoiled so many brushes. If you guys have any tips on how to prevent that, I have tried storing them in water. It just ruins them. I can never rinse the glue out completely, and I can't stand using any kind of like brush cleaner. So if anyone has any tricks on how to keep your brushes from getting absolutely destroyed from Mod Podge, please leave it below in the comments. I haven't figured that one out yet in all these years. So here comes the water and the brush. I had heard this works really well. I think maybe because it was a calendar page, it was too thick because it did not budge with the wrinkles. I had better luck with a wet sponge pressing it. I think if I had been using like computer paper or a napkin or something thinner, it probably would have worked brilliantly, but the paper wasn't responding, unfortunately. And this is it, you guys. I also love this, how it came out. It's gonna hold my little cookbook up when I'm cooking. I love tea towels for pillows. They are the perfect complementary look if you're going for that little cottage look. And I've had these for a long time. This is an outdoor pillow here that used to be really bright. It actually faded. I have to change my pillows every single year because the sun is so intense on my front porch. It fades everything. So these tea towels will look pretty bad next year. But anyway, I got them for $1 on clearance from Michael's last summer, I think, and I just thought they would make perfect cheerful pillows at my entrance. So this is a thrift store find. It's a bed skirt. I've talked about this a lot in previous videos. I look for these because that centerpiece I'm cutting off looks a lot like a muslin, and in this case I found one with the beige ruffle, so it kind of imitates the drop cloth if you do it in layers, and I want that kind of material for these DIYs. So since this tea towel is kind of see-through, I'm going to go ahead and glue a little bit of extra material on the back just to make sure that the designs don't show through in the front. I'm not too worried about the back because with this particular pillow, the design is only on the front, so I won't be rotating these pillows. They're going to be facing just frontwards all year round. And so you can see the design is going to show through a little bit. I'm not worried about that at all because no one's ever going to see that. And this time I did something different. I put the pillow inside and then started to glue all of the edges. I wanted it to be really, really tight, I guess, and well fitted. I usually do it separately. I wouldn't recommend doing this. It worked, but it took 3 times, maybe even 4 times as long. So the next pillow, I just do it the standard way where I glue it all together and then push it in there. And if I need to make adjustments, I'll do so. I got lucky I didn't, but that's it. I'm just going to go about gluing it now and sealing it up. For For those of you that are curious about that pink spatula, that is a makeup spatula found at the Dollar Tree, Walmart, Amazon. In the makeup section, it's a 100% silicone spatula, and it is outstanding for crafting with hot glue. It kind of saves your fingers. The one bad thing working with the thinner material is the glue was going right through it, so I got some little hot moments there. But the spatula came to save the day. I'm also covering pillows I found at the thrift store for $1.50, but I think these came up so cheerful and cute. I found this, and it was 50% off because they were still having their 50% off sale, so I got it for $1.50, and I just thought it was so beautiful. It's real wood carved in with those edgings, and I've been waiting to do something with it, and I thought this was perfect because it definitely has that cottagecore vibe. Now I took it outside, I gave it a coat of a white primer, and then I took and spray painted it with the same Rust-Oleum chalk paint in the chiffon cream that I did with the tiered tray, and it still just looked yucky to me. I didn't like it. So I brought it in and I did some custom mixing with the white and the apple barrel paint in the antique parchment, and I got this beautiful cream color, and I'm just painting it on, and then we finally get the look that I'm after. This just looks perfect. And I want to bring out all of those vines and little flowers that are in there, because that, again, when I was shuffling through online looking at all of the different cottagecore, you know, you don't really see DIYs, you see more kitchens styled that way, bathrooms, living rooms, so you just get a feeling for the vibe. And I just knew that if I kind of stayed in these color themes, I was going to pick up a nice energy of the English cottage in the countryside. My mother's from England, and a lot of her school friends from her school days moved out to the countryside, and when we would go to visit, she would drive out there and take me to go see her girlfriends, and they had this kind of decor all over. In fact, I feel like the cottagecore vibe is actually finally giving, you know, we do French country, we do French farmhouse, we do all these kinds of different decor. I feel like this is finally giving the stereotype, you know, not everybody in the country decorates this way, but like a stereotyped vision of what we think when we think of an English cottage out in the countryside. We think this kind of decor, this kind of vibe. It's just very beautiful. So the final thing I do, as you could see, I lightened up the green a little bit because it dried a little darker than I wanted, and then I'm just dry brushing some of the cream color over it to give it a more muted look, and this just came out so romantic, so Jane Austen, and just perfect. It's a beautiful accent piece for this style. So I found this jug at the Goodwill last year, and it was perfect for what I wanted to do. I just give it a coat of this paint because this paint, it has such good coverage. I knew it would cover everything in one sweep, but I actually saw a photo in the Cottagecore photos that I was looking at online where they had put a super light pink jug on a kitchen counter with baby's breath in it. I mean, the pink was so light, it's almost like a blush. And it was just perfect for that whole little cottage scene. So this is what we're going for. I don't know how many of you guys watch Mary from White Cottage Company. I love her, but she actually found this exact same jug in a thrift store last year and did a makeover. I think she painted it white, but it's like nobody wanted this jug. It was in thrift stores all over the United States, but there you go, you guys. Some baby's breath. It's perfect. I love the way this came out. this window. It's actually a photo holder. It was $1.50 at the thrift store, 50% off. I'm super excited when I find it because I didn't really want to go the Dollar Tree route where you take a whole bunch of photo frames and glue them together. It just didn't seem structurally sound, and I was always worried that might fall apart, and if I hang it on the wall it would come crashing down. So I'm really happy I find this. I take some regular acrylic white paint and I'm just going to lightly dry brush a thin layer of white paint on it. I don't want to hide the fact that it is real wood, because that's obviously one of the wonderful things about it is that it's real wood. So here's some wood that is actually from the bunk bed that I had my little boys in, and that's the railing that held my little boy in so he didn't fall out when he was little. And I'm just giving it a light coat of paint. Now I'm really excited because this is going to be the flower box at the bottom of the window, and it's real pine. And the whole time I'm crafting with this, there's just this super fresh smell of pine. I love wood. I love the smell of it, look of it, everything. And I really have a great respect for trees and for people who go out of their way to repurpose wood and recycle it and avoid throwing it away for as long as possible, as long as there's some life left in it. There are these amazing, I don't know if there's men, 'cause there might be, I just haven't come across their videos yet, but there are these remarkable gals on YouTube that literally hop into a landfill to pull out the furniture. I mean, they're like my hardcore heroes. I'm like, did you just do that? I actually totally support that, but I get so stressed watching them because I think they're in there with no mask and no gloves. Sometimes when people are throwing away furniture, there's a reason why they did that instead of donating it to a thrift store. Just something to keep in mind. You don't know what's on the furniture, so lots of fun, you guys, but please be careful. I mean, for example, there could be asbestos on it. I mean, you just don't know. That's my point. So please wear at least gloves until you get home and you can wash it off. So here I'm using wood glue. And I've talked about this in previous videos, so if you're watching my video for the first time, wood glue is amazing for raw wood. It is structured at a molecular level to actually soak into the pores and become one with the wood. The wood bonds so strongly that if you pull it apart, oftentimes the wood will go with the glue. I have so little paint on there that there's enough grain hanging out that I'm going to have an easy bond there, so no worries. However, if you paint your wood really thick with paint, or you put a polyacrylic, Mod Podge, anything like that, game over, because it can't do its job at the molecular level. That's the molecular level, the molecule level. So just keep that in mind. If you want a really strong bond and you're working with raw wood, stick with the wood glue. So there's what we have so far, and I'm going to grab what's becoming one of my favorite craft items, spackling. And you can also get this at the Dollar Tree. I left a link in my description box to the one that I bought, but I'm just filling in the cracks there so that everything looks nice and connected. For those of you that watched me build a free ladder in my Seriously Free DIY series number 2, that's a piece of wood that I actually used as a palette to control how much paint I was going to put on that brush, but it's going to be a perfect aged bottom for this flower pot. So I cut it in half, and see how it's thin, you're not going to see it. And I just wanted to stick with wood, you guys. I didn't want to use any foam board, cardboard, or anything because it is a solid wood piece. So it worked out really well. And now I'm just taking some black paint and aging it and making it look like it's been outside. So here are the Walmart flowers, and I want to show you what I didn't get to show you last time is how full they are. This is what's a really big deal because they have tons of little branches on, and I only use the little individual branches, so I'm actually cutting them apart, and they do a remarkable job at filling everything out really well. The Dollar Tree has beautiful flowers too, but I'm not sure they're as full, so for the price it might work out to be the same. And you know, I really love how this turned out. And today we found sweet little Miss Piggy at the Goodwill when I was thrifting 6 months ago. 50% off. It cost me 50 cents. I never go unless it's 50% off. I never spend more than $3 unless it's a really, really good deal. And so I'm just going to remove her paraphernalia, her bow and the little fence on the surface. So anyway, I'm going ahead and tracing with some wax paper here to try and remember the shapes, like little ears and mouth and tail and legs, that I will need to put back on after I'm done painting her. And I'm just giving her one coat in my amazing DIY chalk paint, and it performs amazing. In my opinion, it performs better, it's superior over the brand name big boys out there of chalk paint. Here I'm just giving a little bit of gray, like dry brushing and edging this little piggy in some gray just to kind of make it look more vintage and rustic. And here's my favorite still. I know you can scribble pencil on the back, but I save ink like now. You can see it right there. I just put a piece of paper up to my computer screen and I trace out the words. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's not going to be perfect when you trace it out. But I love carbon paper. It's ink, and I wish I could find paint that looked like that. So I'm just going to situate my words where I want them to be. I don't want them to be perfect because I don't want it to look like a cookie cutter stamp. I kind of want the piggy to go up at an angle. As you know, that's kind of the trick they do. You know how photographers, when they film, they purposely shake the camera to try and look like an amateur. I notice Hobby Lobby and a lot of the arts and crafts stores like Michael's, they sell these things and they purposely make it look homemade by making the words a little wonky. So I guess that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to make it look homemade, but it's really to make it look more like it's store-bought. So go figure that one out. Anyway, that's what I'm doing. And I just use a little bit of masking tape in the corner. That's a great method for me to hold it in place. It's good enough. And I move the little square of, oh, I'm sure you can see what I'm doing, but I move the little square of carbon paper up, and just periodically I can flap it back like a curtain and just check to make sure I'm on target there with all the words. So I start off with a gray Sharpie. Yes, I do. Only to end up going over everything in black, you guys. I'm just showing you this and letting you know that I do use a gray Sharpie. I color the ears with some pencil. I'm going for a really light look. And in the end, it's just too washed out and I end up changing it up. But I thought I'd let you know in case you can see some color change there that isn't normally present during, you know, like if you just use black, this is the explanation. And now I'm using my favorite burnt umber from Apple Barrel Paint and just shading in there between the legs to give the piggy a more definite shape and some definite legs. And here I am edging little Miss Piggy with the burnt umber just to give her that rustic aged old look that is so classic Farmhouse. And here she is, and I really love her. She came out a lot better than I expected. 50 cents. She's in my kitchen right now on a shelf. Looks so cute, has added so much charm to my kitchen. I'm really pleased with the way that she turned out. So on that same thrift day, I came across this lantern and I couldn't believe it, to be honest. And it was really dirty. The glass was broken inside, so it did need some TLC. But I saw this on Home Talk the other day, so we're going to try and get that look that we saw on Home Talk. And before I forget to mention, this was $4.99, so 50% off. It cost me $2.50. Now, I also had a pleasant surprise. Well, besides having to remove these little metal things, which came out really easy, because I decided I don't want glass. I want it to be more like an atrium lantern. I'm always going to have like fresh greenery in there. But it had an electric candle in there that had a timer, and it still worked. So I was really happy about that. But the candle was, you know, very cheesy looking, but we'll address that later. So here I am again with my one coat DIY Holly Humble chalk paint. And I'm going really slow because honestly I don't want to take the hardware off. I could tell when I took the little rooftop off, I don't know if it's called a roof, but the top off, that the screws are really fragile and I wasn't sure I was going to get them back in exactly right, and I didn't want to have any problems closing it. So I just took my time and went really carefully around the edges of the hardware there so that I don't have to take them off. And even though this chalk paint is one coat, I forgot when you paint these kinds of things with all little nooks and crannies. First of all, it like took me forever. I think it took me 3 hours to paint this thing, but I had to hardly use any paint on my paintbrush because if I did, it dripped in all the little corners. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. If you paint, you can't avoid it when you have all like little corners and angles like that. So you can see it's dripping already towards the front there. So I end up having to put a very light coat of the chalk paint on, and then I end up having to do 2 coats in places anyway, but normally that is a 1 coat chalk paint. Now, one of the things that is so corny about that candle is it's way too tall. And it's designed to look like it's melted quite a bit, so that doesn't make sense, because if it had melted to the extent where it was curling like that with uneven edges, it would have been like a 10-inch candle, so it would have been up in the rooftop. I don't know if it's a roof again, but so anyway, the candle's just corny, and I ended up taking out the bottom, and I decided to leave it out because there's no way for me to add a bottom in there without it being noticeable where the legs are in the front. So, and that's fine, because I actually like that it's open because I get to push down my florals and push the candle down, and then the candle's the right height and the florals kind of get tucked in nice and tight all around, and it ends up being really, really pretty. So we leave the bottom out. And we are finally done painting it white. So here I am dry brushing some of the apple barrel pewter gray paint on. I love that color, very versatile for farmhouse. But if you can't find it, don't stress, any gray will do. It's also the gray I use for Little Miss Piggy too, I forgot to mention that. Now here comes the rooftop for the lantern, and I'm choosing an iridescent silver, and it doesn't matter what iridescent silver, but I'm going for this kind of metal. I don't want to do galvanized. I really stressed about that, you guys. I was contemplating for hours, but I decided the galvanized would actually distract from the lantern a little bit too much. I tend to look at the galvanized metal more when I see a piece, any piece of craft work. I always first look at the galvanized metal, and I didn't want that to be the case. I wanted the actual lantern to be the center focal point. And here's the corny candle. You can totally see why. It's like shiny, shiny plastic. No candles look like that. It's really bad. I don't even know if you can see it on camera, but it's really bad. And I stressed about that too. I was thinking for a long time what I could do. I thought about putting, hot glue dripping down it, wax, and I thought, no, it'll chip off. I read up on so many different techniques you can do to give texture to shiny surfaces, and in the end I thought it's the chalk paint, because the chalk paint dries so super matte. It's wet right there, but it dries so velvety and matte, and if I sponge it on, it will give it just a little bit of texture, and it will look like real wax. And there you can see it does. It worked like a charm. I was so pleased. The candle is nice and short now, looks realistic, and it's gorgeous. And these little guys were 50 cents. They were 50% off. They were $1 originally, but I got them for 50 cents. I'm giving it 1 coat of my Holly Humble chalk paint. Now, it's not plaster of Paris or baking soda. If you're interested in making it, it's super cheap and easy. The link is at the end of this video as well as below in my description box. But I read that the 1980s and 1990s vintage farmhouse look is coming back, which includes little ducks and quilts. And so when I saw these, I got really excited. I grabbed them up, and I'm just edging them now with a little bit of the apple barrel paint in the color Burnt Umber to age and distress them. And here I'm going for the more chippy kind of, more pronounced distressed look. I didn't want to do the light dry brushing. I definitely wanted some streaks on them. I guess I was trying in a way to give the illusion of feathers as well, and it adds dimension. And I'm using a black Sharpie permanent marker to add little eyes, and I'm going to use a brown pen and just color in the little beaks as well. So these are just some words I did in my word processing program using the font Skinny. It's a free font that you can download under, if you Google free farmhouse fonts. Boy, that's a lot of alliteration. Free farmhouse fonts. But you come up with one that's called the Skinny, and it's, I think, a Ray Dunn inspired one. And I'm just going to write Home Sweet Home. And I'm using carbon paper. And thinking about hanging this on my front door as an all year round wreath holder, because I can decorate those little ducks for each season. I'm not sure about Christmas. Maybe Christmas. Maybe those could be partridges in a pear tree. What do you guys think? Can I get away with those being partridges? I'm not sure. But I just thought it would be kind of neat to have an all year round wreath holder, or I could hang little jars with flowers off of them. I mean, it just gives me a lot of different options there on my front door, and I thought that would be fun. Tell me what you guys think. Just using a black painter marker, which is below in my description box as well. And here it is, you guys. So cute. I mean, look how I've already hung things on it. So I was just thinking it's so versatile for the front door. You can hang all kinds of things on it. It would be super cute and sweet. I love this, and I'm just glad I found it because, like I said, the vintage look is coming back, and I got lucky. As you can see, they're not quite my style. They're more, I think, like a glamorous shabby chic, and I'm going to attempt to turn these into more of a farmhouse. I'm pretty sure flowers of all kinds go with farmhouse, but you've got to put it in the right setting. So obviously the first thing I'm going to do is get them out of their frame, which was pretty tough. I had a hard time with that. I lost the footage. I get them out, and I end up painting them with the antique parchment by Apple Barrel. I just paint them beige, and then I take a pencil and I draw the little scoring lines on, and those little ovals there, I just took a brown Sharpie and colored them brown because they were originally gold, just like the frames. And now I'm taking the burnt umber and I'm adding some wood grain. I step back and look at it, and I realize that it still looks a little too clean and new to be a rustic farmhouse, so I take out my baby wipe and I'm just going to add subtle shadows here and there so it looks a little bit more, authentic, like wood, and a little bit older, so it looks nice and rustic. I'm happy with this now. It totally looks farmhouse. It's looking good, and I'm moving on now to that gold glam frame. And I'm going to start by giving it one coat of white chalk paint. Since I made it darker, I realized that the scoring lines now have disappeared. So I grab one of my colored pencils in a dark gray. It's almost black. It's like a really super dark charcoal gray, and I redo the little scoring lines. then to get it to go with my decor just a little bit better, I need to dirty up and distress those frames just a little bit. This next DIY, I used a Dollar Tree wreath and some of this Hobby Lobby lamb's ear garland, and I'm going to use one of these little signs from a Dollar Tree fall sign that I got, and this frame which I found at a thrift store. But I often talk about a video I made on how to make a fake farmhouse sign, and I want to do a shout out now to Cora on Instagram, who made an Instagram story and tagged me in it, and it was awesome. She took this one step further. If you're out there, Cora, you rock. That was so inspirational. So if you guys don't have a frame like this and you can't find one at a thrift store, I often see things like this at the thrift store really cheap, under $3, but make it. Be creative, have fun. So after I remove the hardware, I do have to fill in the front hole, just so you know there's not a big hole there, because I'm using it for a frame. It looks like it was like a cabinet door. And I'm using the Kilz, K-I-L-Z primer again. That's why I'm wearing an apron, because you get that on your clothing and it's totally unforgiving. It's a water-based primer. I have no idea how I ended up with the Starbucks, but I have Starbucks aprons in my home. I think my kids had a friend that worked there or something. I ended up with 2 of them. But anyway, do wear an apron. And I'm just using the little inner ring there. I don't want that huge thing. And I ended up having my husband finish cutting those. That was just too hard. I need some stronger metal cutters. That hurt my hand. So don't attempt that unless you have really strong hands or really strong cutters, one of the two. If you do decide to take advantage of the Hobby Lobby lamb's ear, and I suggest you do, it's dirt cheap, it's 6 feet, and it's like the best quality lamb's ear. I mean, it's not cheap. It's not like some Amazon stuff is really pathetic. This is awesome stuff. It does have those little plastic circles because it's meant to be a garland and kind of, you know, held up everywhere. So you do have to clip those out because it will definitely look fake. And I'm just taking some of the Dollar Tree black wire and wiring it onto this wreath frame. I don't like to use hot glue. You can, but it removes the fur off lamb's ear and it kind of ruins it if you want to repurpose the florals. As you guys can probably guess, my home decor changes a lot, so I try to preserve stuff. And I'm just going to take that sign I showed you earlier in the clip now, give it a coat of white paint to get it ready for the stencil. So I was having trouble deciding between these 2 ribbons. I didn't know whether I should go with the red or the burlap. I ended up going with the burlap, but I would love to hear from you down below in the comments and give me your opinion which one you think would look better. I'm still not totally convinced. And also, during the final reveal, I show you this with the blessed sign and then without the blessed sign. And again, I would love to hear your opinion, but I absolutely love how this came out. Please don't forget to like this video, share this video, comment. It really does help my channel. Thank you so much, you guys. And until the next video, breathe deep, fret not, and do things that make you happy.